You unbox a modern smartphone packed with top-tier processors, high refresh rate displays, and a massive camera array. Yet, within 2 years, the device struggles to make it through a single afternoon. The hardware is immaculate, but the power source dims and fails. Over the last decade, processing power and screen efficiency have grown at an exponential rate. Chemical batteries, however, operate on the exact same principles they did 20 years ago. The physical limitations of storing energy have not kept pace with the technology demanding it. To understand why this happens, look at this diagram contrasting two highly confused metrics. On the left is your daily battery charge, a fluid level that goes up and down as you use the device. On the right is your battery health, the permanent shrinking lifespan of the container itself over months and years of use. Much of the popular advice for preserving that container involves obsessive charging habits left over from older nickel-based batteries. Consumers routinely close background apps and panic over charging their phones to 100%, while ignoring the physical realities of modern power storage. To stop degrading our devices prematurely, we have to stop viewing them as endless digital fuel tanks. A lithium-ion battery is a degrading chemical environment, and preserving it requires understanding its biology. Every action you take on your phone is powered by a microscopic chemical reaction happening inside a tightly sealed lithium-ion cell. This cross-section shows the core mechanism. Lithium ions are stored in a negative chamber, the anode. When you use your phone, these particles travel across a barrier into a positive chamber, the cathode, releasing electrical energy in the process. Recharging the phone simply forces those particles back to the starting line. Notice the counter added to this diagram. It tracks a single charging cycle. A cycle is not defined by plugging the device in, it is a full 100% volume drain and refill. If you use half your battery today, recharge it, and use half tomorrow, that equals one single cycle. This physical movement takes a toll. As millions of ions force their way into the crystalline structure of the electrodes, they cause the material to expand and contract. The sheer physical pressure causes the microscopic lattice to warp and crack. Every microfracture traps a tiny amount of lithium, permanently removing it from the circulation process. The physical structure degrades, leaving less physical space available to hold a charge. The cycle count serves as an inescapable biological clock. Every time a full 100% volume of energy cycles through the battery, the chemical wear advances, and the phone's total lifespan takes a measurable step downward. To slow down this physical wear, device manufacturers and tech forums often recommend the 20 to 80% charging rule. This data curve plots the internal stress on a battery against its charge level. At the extreme ends of the spectrum, approaching 0 and 100%, the structural pressure spikes. Forcing the last few ions into an almost full or almost empty chamber requires immense voltage, stretching the cell's physical limits. The middle section remains completely stable. Because of this stress curve, many assume leaving a phone plugged in overnight forces it to constantly overcharge. Modern smartphone hardware actually cuts off power intake the millisecond it hits 100%, entirely preventing the kind of continuous overcharging that causes dangerous cell failure. While these extreme percentages cause gradual physical stress, the absolute primary catalyst for rapid battery death is actually extreme heat. Playing intense graphical games, direct sunlight exposure, or hot, trapped cars generates temperatures far beyond the battery's operating threshold. High temperatures act as a chemical accelerant. The heat triggers parasitic reactions inside the cell that aggressively consume the liquid electrolyte and dissolve the internal structure at a rate far faster than normal cycle wear. Tracking your charge between 20 and 80% provides a mathematical benefit on paper, but if the phone is consistently baking in a sunlit car or running hot during intense tasks, the thermal damage entirely erases those careful charging habits. This thermal reality explains the actual cost of modern fast charging and wireless charging technologies. High wattage wall adapters and magnetic charging coils do not inherently harm the battery through speed or electromagnetism. The damage comes entirely from inefficiency. These methods generate massive amounts of excess heat as a byproduct of moving so much energy so quickly. Knowing that heat and extreme voltage cause degradation, mobile operating systems have stepped in to manage the physics without requiring the user to do anything. This timeline graph illustrates how optimized battery charging works. Using machine learning to predict your daily routine, the software charges the phone quickly in the evening, holds it steady at 80% to avoid voltage stress, and only applies the final 20% of power moments before your morning alarm rings. Current battery hardware is highly vulnerable to our daily routines. Right now, this intelligent software is the primary defense mechanism keeping devices functioning reliably for a full 2-year cycle. Traditional lithium-ion architecture is straining the physical limits of its capacity. To gain significantly more battery life without making phones heavier, the industry is shifting to entirely new foundational chemistries. Solid-state batteries replace the highly reactive liquid inside current cells with a stable, solid material. This removes the risk of thermal runaway, drops operating temperatures, and packs energy far more densely. Silicon-carbon batteries are already rolling out in select Android flagships. By replacing the traditional graphite anode with a silicon-carbon mix, manufacturers are fitting massive power reserves into exceptionally thin chassis designs. These breakthroughs offer a clear path out of our current battery limitations, but until they scale to become the global standard across all devices, the health of our current hardware remains our responsibility. You do not need to wait for a technological leap to double the lifespan of the smartphone you already own. A few immediate behavioral adjustments will mitigate the chemical wear. First, enforce absolute thermal discipline. Do not run graphics-heavy games while actively fast charging, and never leave the phone exposed on a sunlit dashboard. Second, if you intend to keep your phone for 4 or 5 years, adopting the 20 to 80% charging routine will measurably reduce physical stress on the internal lattice. It requires effort, but the physics back it up. Finally, use reputable cables. Ensure optimized charging is enabled, and plug the phone in overnight without a second thought. Micromanaging individual percentage points often creates more anxiety than it cures. If you simply keep the device cool and avoid pushing the chemistry to its extremes, the hardware will do the rest, reliably powering your daily routine for years to come.